All right, welcome in. Good afternoon, morning, depending on where you may be. We appreciate you spending some time with us on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Reminder to subscribe, like away. Make sure you hit that notification bell on shows like this, the Awesemo Fantasy Football Shows. We're here Monday, Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern time. Myself, Mr. Rasa, Mr. Loughy, all three of us getting you prepared now for an extended version of leading up to the regular season. But like we do, there's always news, there's always information, and it's always going to impact what you do, especially with your best ball draft. So a reminder, as the show brought to you by Underdog, hit up Underdog if you haven't already. We've seen people in the chat routinely each and every show thank us for letting them know about Underdog, the best ball in town, over $3 million in prizes, over $1 million to first place in their biggest best ball draft. Just use our promo code Awesemo, 25% off. We'll match that with you. It's amazing. Just use that. We'll match the $25, pardon me. So make sure you jump in and continue to kind of use what we say throughout as a little guide. Now we're done. The games are pretty much wrapped up now. The preseason has been wrapped up, so we can all collectively exhale. But coming from this weekend, guys, wow, some pretty big news. We'll dive right into it in a minute there with J.K. Dobbins and beyond. But it does feel nice to kind of finally be here without like a couple of games still looming over our head this night.
Yeah, we just have a whole lot more news, and I think Sean McVay has the right idea. Just don't play your starters in the preseason at this point. Like, rookies, fine. You want to get a feel for it. I get all of that. It's only 3 preseason games, and you could make the argument that it could happen in practice too. But just too many good players getting hurt in the preseason. It's disappointing. It sucks. And at this rate, you know, what is playing 1 series really going to do for you? What's playing 2 series? What difference is that really going to make? I don't know. I'm not a coach, right? I'm not a scout, but it seems like in an effort to avoid any of that going into the season, I would probably do it.
I always think that too, but then I will say, I do think there's something, because the way the NFL has shifted in terms of contact practices and just that there's a little more incentive, because these guys are not taking serious hits in practice for months leading up to the season like it probably was at one point. I get that feeling to maybe, you know, not come into week 1 completely cold, but you see Dobbins, you see these other things happen, and you think, how can you put them out there? It could be a season defining injury depending on who it is.
Yeah, the biggest thing is just trying to deal with balance, right? Because on one hand, we have Andy Reid coming out and explaining why Mahomes is playing so much. People were putting Josh Allen in Canton on a cross-body throw over the weekend in the preseason. But on the flip side, we do see the injuries, and it's kind of a balance. Like I was very critical of Nick Sirianni not playing Jalen Hurts at all outside of that stomach issue in the first 2 series. It's younger players, but still, I would have been very upset if that were to happen to Hurts, where we would have seen a major injury. So I think,
and then you'd be
balance,
then you'd be the guy going, then you'd be the guy going, I can't believe he played in the preseason.
Did you see he played Burrow 3 snaps? They got him in and out, a couple handoffs, and now he's good. It seems more symbolic, honestly.
Right. That's what this is. Now, unfortunately for J.K. Dobbins, where we can dive in here, this was not a matter of being sat, rested up, and Dobbins is definitely out. Like, there's no coming back from this. So if you've already locked him up in best ball drafts, RIP. But there's also the fallout, and I think a lot of people have jumped on the Gus bus. I do have a couple of concerns, just how touchdown dependent he is, and also the lack of receptions that I don't necessarily think he gets immediately. But let's look at this. You know, the injury and then the fallout, positive at least on Gus, but clearly to those who drafted J.K. Dobbins, you are SOL.
I don't think he's touchdown dependent, man. Like, I think Gus Edwards is actually, I don't think Gus Edwards is really good. You could make an argument. Who are the best backups in the league? Kareem Hunt probably being one of them.
Hunt there, Murray, Latavius Murray, I put in there.
I'd say he's up there as a pretty decent one. Tony Pollard, people, you know, people get excited over him. I think you can make an argument that Gus Edwards is the best backup in the league, at least along with somebody like Kareem Hunt, maybe a little bit behind them. But get this, in 3 seasons as a pro, he's averaged north of 5 yards per attempt in every single season. Okay. He's good. Yards after contact, he's solid. Yards before contact, which is, more a testament to the line in many cases than anything else, but they have a good line. And I think Lamar Jackson, all of that concern, it's like, well, now you don't have Dobbins and Gus Edwards. You have Gus Edwards and then a couple guys that are going to get some work, but not in a high capacity. I mean, if you look back in his first year, he had 137 carries where like Alex Collins was the only other back on that roster of note. I think Gus Edwards gets enough work, and I think he's efficient enough. He led the team in goal line carries last year as well, and that was with Dobbins and Mark Ingram on the roster. I like him. I don't know if you should be overdrafting him. Someone told me he did a 14-team draft, and someone drafted Gus Edwards at 32nd overall yesterday, and I've seen him go early. But if you're getting him in the 50s, I am definitely okay with getting Gus Edwards there. He's on a great team that runs the ball at the highest clip in football.
That's the thing. Like, I think Gus Edwards in this situation is certainly viable. If a team that wasn't really run heavy, their running back went down and Gus Edwards was the backup, I'd say, okay, obviously you get to boost, but I don't know if it's the greatest spot. I do think, though, the unknown Lamar, I'm not going to say he's going to consolidate the rushing because you can't have him carrying the ball, a massive amount of times. That's not what they want to do. But there is always that element. I do agree that behind Edwards, like Justice Hill, I think is an interesting player, but he's not going to carve out, where he's dominating the carries. That's just not in the cards. I think Lamar would be more likely to take some of the Dobbins rushing if it's needed.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. And look, we have it on our season-long prop tools. I use this in order to place the wager at plus 7,500 for Lamar Jackson to lead the league in rushing touchdowns because he and three other running backs were projected in double digits. That's pre this injury. So where I'll meet you halfway and say, clearly, I mean, Loughy, you're dead on. Every time that he's been out there, Gus has been able to maximize the limited to just not enough that you would see from a true number one / bell cow productivity. He's maximized that. But on the flip side, I do wonder just how much more of that running, rushing, including that scoring that Rasa just mentioned that I'm banking on from a bet standpoint, at least, how much of that just piles on to Lamar Jackson, not even just from a breakdown standpoint, but also from a game planning standpoint now that Dobbins is out.
Yeah, but that's what makes it so interesting is you can't really game plan for Lamar Jackson in the way that you can for other quarterbacks, and he opens things up. J.K. Dobbins averaged 6 yards per attempt last year. Gus Edwards averaged 5 yards per attempt. And I would imagine that Lamar Jackson was, above all of them. I forget the exact number. He averaged, I don't have it in front of me, but it was a lot, right? Like it was a lot. Yep. And that's what he does. He had 1,005 rushing yards on 159 carries. So what, 9 something per carry? It's insane.
Like 6, but yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Ben?
Yeah, it's a nice clip. I'll put it to you like that. No doubt about it.
What is it? Like 8 per 7?
Less than that, but it's north of 5 for sure.
All right. Well, I'm not good at math, but hold on.
What's the numbers?
No, hold on. You're right. 6.3.
Yeah.
Jordan is laughing at us collectively.
I mean, it's a super efficient offense to run the ball. And I think that's what we're kind of all saying in different ways. That it's just an offense that's going to put whoever is back there in a really good opportunity. So if the volume goes, we know the efficiency is going to be there because of the way Baltimore plays. And Lamar opens it up for every running back. It may hurt volume, but he makes up for that in efficiency. So I get why, of course, Gus Edwards is one of the major storylines.
Yeah. And look, you have someone in Greg Roman, who's the offensive coordinator. He's been an offensive coordinator on 3 different teams for 8 different seasons. His team has been bottom 3 in pass play percentage in 7 of those 8 years. And the only year that they weren't, he was bottom 6. All right. It was 1 year with the 49ers. There's all these rumors that they want to throw the ball more, right? They got Rashad Bateman. They drafted Tylan Wallace in the 4th. I get that. You need to open up the passing game. You brought on Sammy Watkins for whatever that's worth. And you have Marquise Brown, of course, that can make things a little bit different. It can open things up for him if you have some good receivers on the outside and in the slot. But do we really think that they're just going to go pass heavy? No, maybe they pass a little bit more, but they're still going to throw the ball or they're still going to run the ball a ton. And I'm not suggesting that Gus Edwards is going to be a 300 carry guy. And only one team targeted receivers less than the Ravens last year. It was the Titans because, well, they had Derrick Henry. But can you get enough volume out of Gus Edwards without Dobbins? I certainly think you can. And can you get an efficient enough volume out of him? I absolutely think you can. And then lastly, is this offense good enough to be in goal to go situations, to be inside the red zone often? I think they will be. So in my opinion, all of that is enough to say, you know what? Gus Edwards is solid, even if he's not going to get 280, 300 carries this year.
So real quick, before we move on to T.Y. Hilton, I'm just curious because you mentioned this when we just first started talking about Gus, Loughy, about not overdrafting him, right? Not looking at this as an overreaction and bumping him up significantly. Is there, and we just got the news, right, that Gurley is not being sought out after by the Ravens. So if in fact there is somebody out there, we'd have to look specifically at maybe a name that would entice you to this, but we know that Gus has been in this rotation. Now, clearly because the guy ahead of him is just better and they wanted to work that enough to move on from Ingram at all. But I do wonder if you can jump in now at least and not have any type of drafter's remorse if in fact they do bring another name, if that's the case, or we start to see early on them still rotating a little bit and not plan on giving Gus 300 or even 200 carries this year, which would still be a career high for him at 200.
Well, let me ask Ben. Ben, what do you think Gus Edwards and this team are strong enough and, durable enough for him to get 200 plus carries while Lamar Jackson shoulders a heavy workload? And then you give some to like, what's his name? Tyson Williams and those type of guys.
I mean, I think Baltimore is in a unique situation for that, where these things can coexist. We've seen it. I mean, it's probably leak on mine. So many times on the DFS side or any side, I'm like, well, Dobbins, Lamar, cannibalizes so much, but there's just so much to go around, and you make up for the lack of volume with every carry that Gus Edwards has is almost like 1.5 carries for a lot of other backs. Because there's such high quality touches.
It's true
that he doesn't need 40 carries in a game. He can get by with teens because of the way they play.
All right. So we'll move
real quick, just to close this out. People, I think, overlook the fact too, that while in his rookie season, Gus Edwards only had 137 carries, he only played 11 games. That's a 16 game pace of 200 carries as a rookie. So why do we not think that he can shoulder a much heavier workload now would be the question. I mean, he was pacing 200 carries as a rookie, played 11 games, 133 carries in 2019. Mark Ingram was the guy. Last year it was Mark Ingram, the star, and J.K. Dobbins, and Gus Edwards still got 144 carries, and they just signed him to a pretty significant extension. I mean, yeah, I don't think he's going to be, like Ben said, a 20 carry per game guy or even a 20 touch per game guy, but do 16 touches from Gus Edwards mean a lot more than 16 from Joe Mixon? Yeah, I think absolutely they do.
We appreciate any and all super chats, including from Rock out here. So we're going to move on to T.Y. Hilton and kind of the ripple effect out there. Another injury to the offensive line for the Colts as well. So Rock out, though, on the super chat would feel comfortable with Javonte Williams, Michael Carter as your running back 2, trying to trade DeAndre Swift for a better wide receiver 2, and his running back 1 being McCaffrey. So there's a lot to digest there.
I don't I mean, obviously there are other factors of what your team has, but I don't mind that mentality. You obviously have a cornerstone RB1. You're going to increase your variance on your RB2. If you want to upgrade, if you think, okay, my wide receivers are a little thin, DeAndre Swift's got a lot of questions of his own. So if you're comfortable with one of those rookies kind of holding it down, I think that's an absolutely fine move.
It's risky for sure
thoughts?
because both of them
Definitely
are
risky
in clear timeshares. But like you said, DeAndre Swift is no sure thing to come in and just crush. They're on an awful offense. If you could trade DeAndre Swift for a CeeDee Lamb, or I would go for an Allen Robinson if you could pull that. What are you laughing at?
Just of course, like, let me think of a play. Oh yeah, I'll go CeeDee Lamb randomly. Sure. Can't.
I don't get it.
I love CeeDee Lamb. You're just obsessed.
No, I'm not. I just think the guy's really good. That's all I'm saying. But you probably wouldn't. Swift's ADP has fallen a little bit further. I don't know. What do you think? You'd probably fetch like a Cooper Kupp, maybe a Chris Godwin for that, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not a anti either one of those guys. If you can flip that, by all means.
Yeah.
If you're in that range.
Hey, by the way, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Appreciate all of you guys hanging out with us today. Football season's right around the corner. So let's get this shit going. But yeah, if you haven't done so, hit that thumbs up. Only takes a second. Don't embarrass me in front of my family when I tell them we only had 18 likes on a show. And then, of course, subscribe to the channel. Please, we're almost at 10. Boys, we're almost there at 10K. We've come a long way in just a couple months. Thanks to all of you guys watching us every day.
That's insane. I see the views going up routinely too. So we have this, the mothership, and then, of course, the Awesemo Odds channel. You want to make sure that you're subscribed to everything. You don't have to go anywhere. We have you fully taken care of. T.Y. Hilton is out. This is the vaguest neck injury that we've seen since, Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning was the one. Sorry. So this is bad. At least from the surface, it looks like this is pretty bad. He's also a guy that wasn't blowing doors off by any means last year with Phillip Rivers throwing the football. So there is kind of that compounding of trying to come back from a down year as well as being hurt with this neck injury that we know in this league, especially playing that position, can be so tricky to deal with. And then you have another injury on the offensive line to help, or in this case, not protect Carson Wentz, we assume, right? So this whole situation seems pretty shitty down in India and in Indianapolis. But at the same time, fellas, we know that they're still going to throw the football, and there is going to be some trickle effect here. It's just the damage to T.Y. Hilton, as much as Frank Reich wants to kind of calm us down on this, it looks like it could be pretty serious, at least deeper into the year.
Go ahead,
I mean, yeah, I'm a T.Y. Hilton truther, so I don't know. This does seem a little problematic. The question marks are piling up, and when they pile up on each other in a team, like I do agree. They're going to throw the ball. They play indoors, which I think can't be overlooked. They play in the South. They get 2 against the Texans, 2 against the Jaguars. Those are all really good things. I don't know, though. I do think, of course, when you look at, Michael Pittman is a name that a lot of people are very, very high on. I am too. I think at some point the hype is getting a little overshadowed, but if Hilton is out for a long time, I mean, what are they going to do? They only have a couple options. Either they go very conservative and they lean on Jonathan Taylor heavily like he was in college, where he was just a super beast in terms of workload, or somebody's going to have to step up on the outside because it's pretty thin out there.
It is. Paris Campbell's going to be in the slot if he's on the field. I mean, that guy's played 9 games in 2 seasons, but he's good. Remember, this is the thing about Hilton. And Ben, I know you're a truther, but here's the one thing about Hilton that is particularly concerning to me now, especially with this injury. He's not injury prone as people would like to talk about. 2 years ago, he was injury prone. He only played like 11 games or whatever. But other than that, he has been on the field, even if he's a guy that doesn't practice on Wednesdays. Who gives a shit about that, right? Julio Jones the same way. I don't care if you're not practicing on Wednesday as long as you're on the field on Sunday. But he's up there. He's going into his 11th season. And Michael Pittman Jr. and Paris Campbell are back-to-back second-round draft picks in 2019 and in 2020. Pittman was disappointing last year. He missed some games, though, and Paris Campbell has not been on the field. But these guys are the players that Frank Reich and company want to be the future of Indy. And I think now you look at this team and you have to assume that the value probably lies there. And I'm okay grabbing Pittman around 100 ADP. I mean, shit, it depends on where you're drafting him at. Check this out. If you're getting Pittman, you're playing in like ESPN leagues, you're getting Pittman 12th, 13th round. Maybe the Hilton News changes that a little bit. If you're playing at CBS, I'm looking at 142 ADP, Yahoo 188. Just no respect here. If you're over on Underdog, you're probably getting them around 98, 100 because it's a sharper field there, and it's best ball where you're willing to take shots. But I still like Pittman a lot. Big body receiver. He can make contested catches. He's a red zone threat. I'm not particularly worried about Wentz going on the COVID-19 list, although it would have been nice to see him get more practice in after, returning from this injury. But yeah, I just did a do not draft video and talked about Hilton potentially being on his last leg. And last season, outside of a string of games towards the end of the year, it was really rough for him.
What about, and let me throw this name out as far as more of a long shot, but you mentioned a couple of guys either hurt or just struggling to get on the field, despite what we've seen. They didn't draft, they didn't draft Mike Strawn to come out and start. But, this is appealing to Rasa's now betting you college football acumen here. This kid is a monster. He's humongous. He was taken in the 7th round to probably just get cut. But I wonder if just due to sheer circumstance, we talked about Quez Watkins and other guys you would take a shot at in the back end of a best ball draft. T.Y. Hilton ain't coming back. And you're still looking at some other just injury / just struggles of guys who haven't had that consistency. This would be a perfect opportunity for him to Strawn to break into as like a wide receiver 4 on this roster and maybe go out and do something a game or two.
I mean, somebody's going to have to step up. Pascal, this guy who I've literally never heard, like, he played college in the Super Drags. I don't know exactly what his pedigree is, but at the same time, I mean, I don't think that the target share can consolidate too heavily. You already mentioned Paris Campbell is going to be in the slot. They're going to need to do something. I think I would probably keep it pretty generic, though, and just grab Pittman. The ADP hasn't risen to a level where I'm saying, okay, let's pump the brakes. I still think he's primed for a pretty good year. I've been higher on Wentz than society for a while now, and the floor with him is non-existent anyway. So I think the Colts are a sneaky team to kind of, little stacks here and there in best ball and whatnot with some high upside and not a ton of risk at this point.
And you're essentially getting Paris Campbell for free if he can stay healthy. Like,
he's just like an add-on, and it's nice because I do think the upside is there.
Yeah, you're getting him for free. So if you're stacking like that, but let's not ignore something else. I was drafting, and don't judge me for this. I was drafting best ball drafts in early June. I think maybe even late May at some point over on Underdog. And then I'm still doing them in late June and early July and late July. Well, in early June, Jonathan Taylor had an ADP of 6 overall. In late July, just days before the Carson Wentz injury was revealed, you had Jonathan Taylor going 9th overall. Now on sites like Underdog, he's going 15th overall. I think that's a bargain there. I mean, the guy is going to get a ton of work. There's no doubt about that. He's going to get a ton of work. And you know that Wentz is likely going to return now. Quentin Nelson should be back at least for enough of the season to not make a huge difference. And while you have Nyheim Hines as your pass catching back, Derrick Henry is not a pass catching back. And he was the #1 standard league and RB3 and PPR leagues last year. I just think that right now, Jonathan Taylor, the more that happens to the passing game, Frank Reich finds more ways to get him the football. And if that's the case, you could see a monster year from him. Don't forget, for those of you guys wondering, right? And you're looking at Jonathan Taylor, go look at the end, go look at the last quarter of the season for Jonathan Taylor. Absurd type of numbers from weeks. Was it weeks? Here it is. Weeks 13 through 17. I'm pretty sure he was the RB1, if not the top 3 or whatever it was. I'll tell you right now, weeks 13 through 17, mind you, this is a rookie. Jonathan Taylor was the RB1 ahead of everyone else in the league. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this. It's not just pass catchers. The backfield's impacted too.
And he was also on the COVID list and then bounced back, put up 91 yards on the ground, and then on that tear that you mentioned. He's bulletproof.
He's phenomenal.
And he's built for this. Like, again, I don't want to take everything to college football, but he went to Wisconsin. They run the ball legitimately 50 times a game, and they would just give him the ball at will. Unlike Gus Edwards, we were talking about, this guy can do it with volume. Like, I think there are definitely scenarios where they just pound it with him if it's just non-existent threats on the outside.
That's a great point. Everyone's concern on Jonathan Taylor coming into the year is the guy saw like 1,000 carries at the collegiate level. Yeah. But who cares? He's going into year 2. It's not like he's dead yet.
That's going to be a concern 4 years from now, 6 years from now, where it's like, wow, this guy, he's on the Cedric Benson carries where he just took so much volume in college. That'll catch up with him. Not in year 2, though.
Exactly. What is he, 22 years old?
Is that it? Yeah, see,
22.
That's another thing, too. Just to your point about working him in the passing game more, I apologize to Ben Rasa and the other 3 people that are on board with the Carson Wentz train.
Yeah, that's right. We're a small but loyal bunch.
You're gonna be really surprised how inaccurate he is downfield, even when he's healthy. And I think that's
another good point. Yeah,
Frank Reich's going to work this, right? We saw this up close and personal here where Doug Peterson and the guy, they were not intuitive enough for whatever reason to play to his strengths. I think Frank Reich is going to work Taylor more than we've seen in that short, quick passing game with Hines there as well. You may see some 22. You may just see 2 backs in order to get the ball out faster because Wentz is not great downfield, especially when you don't know who he's throwing the football to downfield.
Dude, if you take 20 or if you take, say, 30 pass attempts, 20 plus yards downfield over at PFF, right? If you take minimum 30 pass attempts, 20, so deep ball attempts, Wentz had a 40% adjusted completion percentage and completed actual 33% of those passes. Not very good. And this is just one of those things where he's not great. Now, he had a lot of drops too. Let's give him, I'm willing to give Wentz a pass, not a full pass. He still led the league in interceptions and was tied in fumbles, and the dude played 12 games. That's horse shit, right? Or dog shit, I should say. But at the same time, there were some really bad drops. Guys couldn't get open downfield. All in all, it was pretty ugly. I will say this: in 2017, Super Bowl winning year with Frank Reich as your offensive coordinator in Philly, Carson Wentz was far better with the 8th highest adjusted completion percentage on deep balls. Now, was he markedly better? No, but he was better. So I still think there's improvement to be had there. And that's probably where Ben comes in on this too. Like, he can't be as bad as last year, and he actually has competent coaching.
Can't be as bad as last year, Rasa, but will never be as good as 2017.
But there's a huge middle ground. It's massive.
Big middle ground for sure.
Like, you're not trying to thread some needle. That's almost a floor and ceiling of being out of the league and the MVP.
Just don't be the nut low for 2 straight years.
Yeah. And I think in the dome with competent coaching, he's going to be just fine.
We thank Rock Out again. Let's get Moen Miaz. Would you trade Josh Allen, Goddard, and Mixon? Another guy here. We keep going over all of these guys that Rasa has close to his heart. We're either trading or fading. That should be the next one. All right. Would you trade Allen, Goddard, and Mixon for Brady, Kittle, and Henderson? I'm inclined to say no, but I'll throw it to the gang here.
I mean, I can't. I would say no as well, but Josh Allen and Joe Mixon are two guys. And it honestly, for me, it's really Goddard. I don't think he's the clear weak link like everyone else does. I think he could still have an effective year.
I do too. I don't think he's a weak link, but I don't think.
I mean, it's not Kittle, obviously.
And it's not the volume we expected before we realized that Zach Ertz is probably going to be on the field each week, you know? And by the way, thanks, Moen. I would say no as well. If Henderson was Clyde Edwards-Helaire or someone in that range, I would say yes, because I think Kittle is that much better than Dallas Goedert, and I don't think Brady is that much worse than Josh Allen from a fantasy standpoint, of course. Although Josh Allen has the wheels and he's phenomenal. So I obviously Brady is not as good a fantasy quarterback, but the guy still threw his 2nd highest touchdown total of his career last year, despite being the oldest player in the league. But no, I'll go no there. Henderson, if Sony Michel wasn't even signed, and maybe I'm overreacting here, but if Sony Michel wasn't signed, I might say, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's a big difference there. All right, we appreciate the super chats again. Not necessary, but definitely the best way to get our attention. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. More people. What's that?
Best way to get our attention. Just give us some money.
Yeah. Look, I'm not here to bullshit, right? I'm not a good poker player. You're like, I'll leave that up to you guys, right? I wouldn't win shit. So I can't lie and say, come on. I have to just be honest with the crew. And look, people get their questions answered. So that's always easy as well.
Name of the game.
All right, so smash away. Make sure you're subscribed as well. Not only here on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, but also the Awesemo Odds channel, Awesemo channel as well, the main ship. And then take advantage of our $25 match if you haven't already at Underdog, the place for best ball drafts. Make sure you jump in from the puppies to the big one. If you can still, for over $1 million, we'll match everything there, $25 with your deposit. Just use our promo code Awesemo. All right. Mac Jones has looked pretty good. I know it's the preseason. It's the preseason. Vanilla offense going up against 2nd, 3rd string defenses. But if you look at what he's done in pretty much every single drive, it's been productive to say the least. We don't have Tom Brady in front of him. So chances are Mac Jones is going to be out there playing a lot this year, especially based off of what we saw in the preseason. So that should probably shift, if it hasn't already, where people are taking him as a QB3 or maybe long shot in their best ball drafts.
Go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say on this. I don't have a strong take on Mac Jones. I know you've been impressed, Loughy. You've mentioned several times about a lot of catchable balls, particularly deep balls with him that have been dropped.
I have been impressed with Mac Jones, but for me, is there any bigger difference between one quarterback starting and the other in the league right now as it applies to the rest of the team, right? Like Drew Lock and Bridgewater is actually, I don't think people understand how big of a difference that is too. I tweeted something the other day. Hit me up on Twitter, Loughy_D. Put my handle up there, Jordan, just so everyone can see it. These guys too, while we're at it, but mostly me.
Well, yeah,
don't worry about us.
I'd like my handle up there as well, if that's okay.
Well, we're talking about me right now, man. You're asking for money. I'm just fucking with you. All right.
Don't you get a cut of that money though?
Actually,
your management.
I know, but so we get bonuses.
Is that what this is?
Look, anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, the Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock thing. Ben loves Drew Lock.
I do.
And there are some reasons for that because there's actually some upside there. And I say that because Drew Lock had the highest, and let me just come full circle here to explain where I'm going with this. Drew Lock had the highest deep ball percentage in the year last season. And no other quarterback attempted more deep balls. 16% of his passes were 20 plus yards downfield. No other quarterback had a higher percentage. Now, a lot of them weren't converted, and no team had a higher drop rate than the Broncos, which actually kind of it kind of helps out Lock in terms of like how bad actually was he. It absolves him of some of those sins, but but he only targeted his running backs like 50 total times, and at 11% clip. Bridgewater targeted his running backs 22.5% of the time. That's a huge number. And McCaffrey only played a couple games. Mike Davis got a ton of targets. They saw 111 total targets from Bridgewater, but he attempted one of the league's lowest deep ball rates. So it doesn't help Sutton, but it really helps guys like, in my opinion, Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams, and then whoever's operating out of the slot and on some short and intermediate routes. So apply that to what we're dealing with in New England. Mac Jones is going to attempt deep balls, and his deep balls actually look pretty good. He's also going to stay in the pocket. Cam Newton had 12 rushing touchdowns last year and 22 goal line attempts. The running backs had 8 rushing touchdowns and 10 goal line attempts on the season. All of the running backs combined. So think about how much this impacts guys like Damian Williams and Ramondre Stevenson in the event that he is going to get some work. He's had a great preseason, but also the wide receivers. Like Cam Newton to Mac Jones is huge. Mac Jones to Cam Newton is also huge, but not in the way you're looking for. And you have to apply that logic when you're drafting this team once we get news on who's starting.
I mean, all of that extremely well said. It impacts. It's a completely different offensive scheme, as you see. Cam, what he does, obviously, and Mac Jones is not similar to that in any way. I guess my question is more philosophical. Doesn't it seem like it would be easier to start Cam and then go to Mac Jones than start Mac Jones if he has even minor growing pains? What are you going to do? Bench him, and then you're going to create quite a mess if you go that route.
The only thing I would say is, just looking at Cam Newton, if he doesn't start, because normally you're right, and I'm not even countering, I'm just trying to talk through this, where if you're Cam Newton and you know that this is it, and Mac Jones is starting, then you're going to want to get the hell out of there. So maybe the appeal is, look, this kid, Mac Jones, is struggling exponentially. The year is over. That plus 350 where it sits right now to win the division is cooked. It's fried, but we can still salvage something and maybe get Cam Newton out there to play for a new job. But you're right. Like the logic of it doesn't really make sense, even when I speak through that. So you would think that this is pretty much just starting Newton for a couple of weeks and maybe get to an easy game or an early bye.
Or you pull the Brian Flores, who is just straight DGAF mode. And he's like, all right, well, Fitz, you're playing well, but we're going to put Tua in. And Fitz said he was apoplectic when that happened. That just came out recently where he's like, he couldn't believe they did that. He thought they were fucking with him. He thought it was a joke. Fitz was playing well, but then Brian Flores, Tua has a bad couple quarters and he throws Fitz back in, and he did it twice. Right. So he just didn't care. He's like, whatever is going to help us win games, I'm going to do it. And in an odd way, although I was pissed off a bit mid-season, I have some respect for that. I admire that. I don't think Belichick cares either, right? Like, I don't think Belichick cares whose feelings he's hurting or what the media says about him. We know that. He's going to do what he thinks is going to win games. And don't get it twisted. This Patriots team was not good last year, but they had a lot of good players opt out for COVID. They had injuries. This defense is going to be good again this year. They were one of the top-ranked secondaries for consecutive years. They have good linebacking core. They're not a bad defense at all. So if Mac Jones is the one that can tip the scale just enough in the direction to make your offense competitive, then this is going to be a competitive team once again. And the Patriots are probably going to be competing for the division, or at least be, a 9-win team.
The problem is again, totally with you. The difference is you can't be doing that with Cam and Mac Jones where you're interchanging, because it radically changes the offense.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be a problem. And the other problem is the philosophy. Normally when you have a rookie QB with hype, naturally you got him early in the draft because your team sucks. So you figure we're going to get killed and then we'll move to him. If Cam starts and he's even decent to above average, there's a real chance that the Patriots start very, very hot and they're playing very well, because the team, I think, is actually still pretty good, maybe underrated, honestly. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen then to Mac Jones. I think there's a lot of scenarios where he waits a lot longer than people think because the Patriots are just effective.
Could be right.
Yeah, that's such a wide gap though, right? Because Newton could come out and be cooked. And you've got Myers, Bourne, you've got the addition of Aguilar as well. And you may be thinking to yourself, are we wasting any downfield speed? Are we wasting anything here to at least be able to stretch it? So it's kind of like that roll of the dice, if you will. And I think this is all we're basically predicating this all on Cam Newton.
We should be.
I mean, everything is on Cam. Mac Jones has done enough, right, Loughy, as far as what we've seen, what Belichick has seen from practices, joint practices to the games, to be the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. But I think, just to echo the point Rasa said, to flip it back on you as we move on after this is all predicated on what Cam Newton, of all people, can do in the first, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at most?
Yeah, Cam Newton can be a good fantasy quarterback. He's not a good fantasy quarterback for his teammates, though. That's the problem. If you're in best ball leagues on Underdog, use the promo code Awesemo, by the way, $25 when you sign up a deposit. It's awesome over there. You'll love it. Huge tournaments, whether you got $5 to play with, 200 or 25, whatever. They got you over there. Use Awesemo promo. But he can be good. He's going to have big weeks. He had 12 rushing touchdowns last year, right? Cam Newton led the league in rushing touchdowns at the quarterback position, but he just vultures everything from everyone else. And if your argument is, well, the Patriots are going to be better this year, so there's just going to be more to go around, I would agree with that. But it doesn't change the ratio. It doesn't change the percentages, right? Cam Newton is still going to get a large majority of those. And someone said that to me the other day. Why does it make a difference between Cam or Mac if the Patriots are better this year? Well, because if you have 50 goal line attempts compared to 32 from last year, the running backs will get more naturally, but Cam Newton's still going to get the majority of them. But if you have 50 goal line attempts and Mac Jones is getting 2 of them, then the running back percentage changes dramatically. So yeah, it matters even if they're better, because then it's just going to be a significant, even more significant volume that you're getting from the running back. So just pay attention. And I know people are saying in chat, there's no way Mac Jones starts. Maybe not, but Bill Belichick can take this with a grain of salt. He just said, no, we have not decided yet. There are still a lot of things to figure out. But the way Mac Jones has played as a first-round pick on a team that knows Cam Newton is not their long-term guy, it's not crazy to think, like Ben said, that Cam plays a couple of weeks and then Mac Jones closes out their last 14 games of the year.
Wow, last 14. Yeah, see, even still, you're looking
I think it's a short.
No. I'm saying plays 3. I say couple, but I know plays 3. And then I thought you were saying with the 17-game season that I got it wrong. But yeah, I could see.
No. I got you. I was giving you the benefit of the doubt here.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that. I could see him going 3 games and then Mac Jones playing 14, but it all depends on how they play.
I don't think if they start 1 and 2, they're going to be like, oh, well, this is a lost season anyway. This is a team that has real expectations.
Right.
So they're going to make a move quickly.
Right.
Plus 350. Sure. Anybody want to jump? Plus 350? Anybody? It's dangling.
What? To win the division?
To win the division. That's all I would look at.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Don't be messing around with the Bills. The Bills are no joke. They're unbettable too.
Okay.
But I like the Bills.
I had to throw it out there. By the way, shout out Baba Yaga for apoplectic. That was Loughy's term there.
Solid word, man.
That is an amazing word.
I just nodded.
Oh,
you know what? That's a word though. That's a word that's not too highbrow for you, Rasa. Come on.
Oh man.
All right.
Let's look at the mess. What are the Bills' Super Bowl odds?
Super Bowl odds?
The Bills
I'll pull
Super
that
Bowl
up
odds, because I think I'd rather bet Bills Super Bowl odds than Patriots to win the division.
Bills
Yes,
I have right now in PA at plus 1,200. Now, again, depending on the book, so you could probably find it a little bit different. So
What are
I
they to
have it
win the
at
division?
1,200.
Minus 150?
It's got to be heavier.
Yeah, to win the division, they're minus money at minus 154. Again, depending on where it is. Dolphins,
Ooh,
Dolphins and
solid
Pats,
guess.
340, 350, respectively. Miami and New England.
Okay.
All right. I will say there's no better time to do this. If you want information like that, Awesemo odds. We've been doing a ton of VODs, and I'm gonna take a quick victory lap. The college football has started. Games were this Saturday. Games are next Saturday. Absolute print fest. We dominated. Those games were laughable spreads. A full slate of games this Saturday. Me and Matt Kajeski. We're gonna be doing live before locks for every slate, and the betting stuff, betting you, all on Awesemo odds. You do not want to miss that.
I tailed every one of your plays and swept the board that day.
Yeah, it was a good
That
start.
was great.
I wish it was always
Rasa
that
was
easy.
on my radio show in Philly like 3 months ago, I think when the schedule first came out, and it just circled that UTEP game and gave it out. So it's amazing, man. Even more reason to be subscribed to all three of our channels here. All right, let's look at whatever it may be, right? From betting to DFS, you can always make some money off somebody else's misery. And just because there's a bad team doesn't mean that they won't put up points or win you a bet. So Jared Goff is definitely throwing the football. We know that. This is not going to be hand the ball off 50 times a game. Rashad Perriman was cut. So now that trickle-down effect, maybe opening some things up for some other guys, especially if it's people that haven't been rostered or drafted high, even in mid to late rounds, just because it's Goff and Detroit, this kind of uneasiness of rolling with that stack. But let's look at now the ramifications, if you will. I hate to use such a strong word with Perriman getting cut.
Apoplectic.
No. I don't think anybody's apoplectic. Jared Goff is not apoplectic that Perriman was cut, right? That's a fair statement.
I was surprised, though, to be honest with you. Like, I was a little bit it sounds silly, but I've been like on the Perriman truther train since the beginning. I really thought he was going to be good in Baltimore. Like, yes. I did. I thought he'd be good. And then wasn't he suspended for a year? Something happened where I think he was suspended. No, Ben?
No, he was on Tampa at one point, right?
Yes. And remember at the end of the season, he had that insane run.
Yeah.
Just an absolute heater to close out the year. Huge games. Go look at his game logs from the closeout of 2019, like the last 5 weeks, where Godwins and Evans were hurt at some point. I think even Humphreys went down. But what's odd to me is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay. I think this benefits him. You got a young rookie with some talent. But, how much are you going to have him outside? Tyrell Williams benefits probably the most, and it already looks like he's been considered the number one there. Aside from that, though, you're looking at, Khalif Raymond, Quintez Cephas, who had a couple big games and some big deep balls last year. Tom Kennedy, which is a funny one, by the way, who is the name of our CEO and also a football player for the Lions that had some really solid games in terms of PPR wise for the Lions this preseason. But really, when it comes to Goff, I think we might want to be looking at guys that aren't reliant on the deep ball. And Perriman kind of would have been reliant on a lot of deep routes, which is just not what Goff is going to do. He might attempt some. It's just how many is he going to make? The one silver lining is their offensive line is not that bad. They actually have a decent offensive line, but they have a defense that is all brand new. I mean, it's going to take time for them to gel. And they're probably going to be playing from behind a lot. So the reason we're talking about Perriman being cut isn't just to fill time because we are actually running late, but because now Goff still has to throw no matter how bad this team is. Who's it going to go to?
I mean, I will say Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think long-term could be an answer there. I do like him. It's just the thing that I saw, Tyrell Williams, he's more of a home run guy than like a possession receiver. It's not like they're going to be blanketing him. I do think the answer, though, is clearly on the roster. It's TJ Hockenson. TJ Hockenson is going to be the safety blanket for Jared Goff. And I think we're going to see this even more solidified now because these wide receivers are not great. The offensive line is better than people think. They also drafted Penny Sewell, who's going to be amazing.
Who you wish was in Cincinnati.
He should be in Cincinnati. We all know that. And now Jamar Chase can't even catch. So that's neither here nor there. So nice job on that. He's going to be great too. But I think Hockenson is going to emerge even more as the guy, target share Tyrell Williams has the home run threat, but there's no way Goff is going to be looking to him early and often in these games.
Yeah, that's the name that I wanted to I know we've brought him up in different capacities before, but now with the heels of the news of Perriman and kind of figuring out where the ball goes, especially to Loughy's point about trying to stay away from guys who are just relying upon the deep ball. I wonder if Hockenson is in a position now where just due to all of these circumstances, his stock, without it being reflected on an ADP quite yet, his stock should be shooting up, and you could probably get him still in rounds where it's more, I hate to use the term steal, but in between a bargain and steal because of these evolving circumstances that are going to be in there. And look, he's been, again, to use the term, he's been bulletproof. I know Matthew Stafford's throwing the ball left and right, but he has shown on bad teams, even with some decent talent around him, that he's not going to disappear in games.
You talking about Hockenson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just as a direct result to try and see if his stock is still boosted to where you can still get him. If people haven't caught on yet, you can still get him in that range of bargain to quasi steal.
Sure. Look, I don't want to be hyperbolic about the the impact of Rashad Perriman being gone, but I think it paints a larger picture of they don't have many options on this team is the thing. And if that is the case, which it is, Tyrell Williams had 1,000-yard year. Outside of that, of course, he was injured. He's been mostly just pulling Houdinis no matter where he is. Guy just disappears. And to be fair, I think Houdini was more like punch me in the stomach and kill me, right? But
I don't think
less disappearing acts.
Yeah, David Blaine.
Houdini was
Copperfield.
Yeah, maybe a little
magician's category for Jeopardy. I'll have to brush up.
Houdini's on the Mount Rushmore though. Like he was the original Harry Houdini was Escape. Wasn't he the escape artist?
Yes, he was definitely an escape artist for sure. David Blaine will stand on a block of ice for 14 weeks. Maybe that was
don't you do that every morning because of that new guide you do?
Wim Hof, baby.
Yeah.
It's legit. Try the Wim Hof breathing method, life changer. Okay.
Wait a second. Are you standing on a block of ice?
No, I'll take some cold showers.
That's chapter 2.
Get you going, man. Oh man. But yeah, that's chapter 2. I think it might've been Angel. I don't know. What do you think though? What do you think Hockenson's, what do you think his receiving prop is? Receiving yards?
850.
I was gonna say like 925.
770.
Yeah, see, that's low.
Okay.
To me, that just seems wildly low given the circumstances and given Jared Goff's propensity to not hit deep balls. He has
770.
770. He has a receiving touchdown prop of 5. I wish there was a receptions here, but ultimately, there is. Let's see if there's a Hockenson receptions prop. Now we don't
45 yards a game.
TJ Hockenson 77.5 receptions. So basically, you're projecting him at like 10 yards per reception, which I think is realistic, but I don't know. I think this could be I'm with you guys. I think this could be a huge year for TJ Hockenson. I think he's going to go over 1,000.
I like it. And they're going to
pound that over.
I know you guys already said this, but just echo. I think the Lions might rival the Texans. They're going to be awful. There's no way they won't be playing a ton of catch up. They also play indoors. A lot of targets, inefficient, but targets will be there.
All right. Before we get out, we want to hit this news as you talk about a stock rising. We've already seen it on the ADPs as well as just the conversations with Najee Harris. But Arthur Coles on the super chat, would you trade Kamara for Hopkins and Taylor or Hopkins and Harris?
Wow. Yeah, I would. And I love.
Well, which one for Hopkins and Taylor? I think Hopkins. If you can get Hopkins and Taylor for Kamara, right?
Yeah. I would want Taylor. People might not like this, but I don't see any reason they shouldn't. I like Taylor over Najee Harris because he's actually on a team that can run the football. Like Najee Harris is going to be very good, and unlike Taylor, there's that 3 down back passing game, no Nyheim Hines behind him. But I do worry that this offensive line is still not good. And that is a bit of a concern to me. But bottom line, as much as I love Alvin Kamara, and I love Alvin Kamara, he's just an amazing dual threat. Winston at the helm is not going to hurt him like Taysom Hill would. But Hopkins is a top 5 wide receiver. And then you're getting a top, what would it be like? Top 10, top 11 running back on top of that. Yeah, a top 12 running backs. I love it.
Yeah, I don't think that's that close, to be honest. That's a trade I think you confidently make.
Basically, would you take 3 second-round picks over 1 first-round pick? Because you already have your second-round pick that you have, right? So it's basically you're getting traded 2 seconds pre-flop, pre-draft for your first. With how deep the second round is this year, and I believe it is ungodly deep, I would do that undoubtedly, yeah.
Especially because the guys you're talking about in just a few iterations were in the first. Like Jonathan Taylor was a guy with a few different things breaking. He wasn't available in that scenario, and now he is.
He was going 5 picks after Alvin Kamara less than a month ago.
Yep.
So on Harris, as we kind of close down here, I'm just curious, and it goes in the backdrop of what we were just talking about on possible trades. And clearly the first option specific to that is going to dominate. But when we look at Harris, the one thing that it's not even a concern, but it's more just kind of the optics of it is the offensive line clearly is going to dictate a lot. And we know that, but they also have, it's not one guy. They've got 4 or 5 guys that Roethlisberger can drop back and throw to consistently. And we know that if you have gems or if you have the ability, if you have guys you can throw to, if it's Johnson, Claypool, and then to a lesser extent, Schuster, Washington, whoever it may come up, Ebron to a lesser extent as well there. But I'm just looking and thinking if that alone should bite into carries, not because it's Benny Snell, behind him or anything like that, but just the fact that they have such a pass-friendly offense, if they can protect their quarterback, that might eat into some carries from a projective standpoint.
They have a pass-friendly offense because they can't protect their quarterback, as odd as that sounds. Like, because think about this. Ben Roethlisberger is getting the ball out quicker than anybody else, right? Like, if you look at the average depth of target on guys like Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster was one of the lowest in the league last year. Chase Claypool was the one guy that you'd rip a deep ball down, but he's huge and he's big and he can just kind of make contested grabs. If you can protect a quarterback and if your offensive line is better, I think you're going to see a lot more in the run game. My concern is, yes, Ben Roethlisberger is going to dump it off to Najee Harris if they can't protect him, and he's going to get the ball out quick, which is good. But it doesn't mitigate the fact that if you can't run the football, you're going to stall out way more than you should. That's all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think clearly, though, the Steelers, they don't want to have the identity they had last year. It was out of necessity. They could not run the ball, and they were forced to throw an astronomical amount of times a game. I think Najee will stabilize that a little bit, but not to the extent. Again, it's all about where guys are falling. And I think he's going to be great. He's a great player. I just don't know right now if the situation is ideal for him. And when you're looking at his ADP, I mean, he's next to guys like Jonathan Taylor and Saquon and Eckler and Mixon. That's a tough group to be going against when you have so many questions on that offensive line.
I mean, he's definitely like your number 1 or number 2 pick in dynasty rookie drafts.
Oh yeah.
Where is that line when you start? Because you mentioned some names here. So just as we wind down, and again, reminder for everybody hanging here to hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We'll be back Friday, 2:00 Eastern, with more to look as this regular season is almost here, we promise. But just last thought for you, where is that line? We already talk about Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but where is that line to where he is in this comfortable group and he's not being overdrafted as opposed to guys like Mixon, Edwards-Helaire below him? I mean, Miles Sanders, James Robinson, is that too far down, I would imagine, right, to start talking about where you can comfortably draft Harris if he's even around? But is he kind of in that middle between Montgomery, Swift, and maybe in that Carson range? Or are we still talking about just being at the bottom of the list in which he's currently in, that tier that he's currently in?
For Harris?
Yes.
No. I still think he's a second-round pick for sure. There's just a lot of uncertainty there, but the volume is going to be there no matter what. Like if he's a 3-down back, I'm still drafting him in the second round because it's so hard to find 3-down backs these days. But for example, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going 6 picks after him, and Joe Mixon's going in between them. Najee, Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think that's too much of a gap. I mean, really, I have Harris and Clyde Edwards-Helaire right neck and neck with each other, and I know a lot of people don't. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire on a much more efficient offense, they completely retooled their entire offensive line. I am actually drafting Edwards-Helaire over Najee Harris, but still taking Najee Harris in the second round. So I still like him. I just like Edwards-Helaire more.
Real quick. This is just such a great way to bridge into what we'll have to talk about next week. Ben, you'll get the final point, but Colts have placed Ryan Kelly, Pascal, and Carson Wentz on the COVID-19 list.
I mentioned that already.
Oh, you did? Okay. I just want to but we'll have to talk about that in more depth, right? Like as far as coming up. Just wanted to get for the people that are popping in thinking we didn't hit that or we didn't talk about that on the way out. Sorry, Ben.
No. Yeah. I mean, the Colts, they got to get their shit together. But if Wentz can get some practices in, they'll be all right. And I'm with you guys. I'll make it unanimous. I like, it's not to say Najee Harris is overdrafted by any stretch. I certainly have him ahead of the Carsons and the Josh Jacobs and all those guys. I think there's just more of a conversation than most are having when you get to the Edwards-Helaire, Mixon, Eckler types. That's all.
And I just pulled this up. Ryan Fitzpatrick average time to throw last year was 2.38 seconds. Then you go down the list. It's like Rivers at 2.39, Nick Foles at 2.4, Brady at 2.42. That's second, third, fourth, and fifth fastest time to get rid of the ball of anyone with 200 or more dropbacks. Ben Roethlisberger was 2.17. So no one was even close to him in average time to throw, which is why you look at yards per attempt and he was at 6.2, right? So that's kind of the thing. If you can't protect him, he's going to get rid of the ball quick, and some of those are going to go to Harris. But just to clear that up, because I mentioned earlier that I was not being hyperbolic. Ben Roethlisberger did get rid of the ball at the quickest pace among anyone, and it wasn't even close.
Apoplectic, hyperbolic. All right, Rasa.
I'll hit you with it for days.
Next show.
Wow, I got a lot of reading to do between now and Friday.
At JazzRaz DFS, at Loughy_D, at Shander Show for me. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you thank Jordan in the chat. Make sure you hit up Underdog and use our promo code Awesemo for a $25 match. And make sure you are subscribed to this channel, the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, Awesemo Odds, and of course, the big one, Awesemo as well. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Friday at 2 Eastern. Have a great week.
Peace.